holistic outlook. Well, on this one, I would like to invite you to widen your perspective from immediate problems to understand the relationship between cause and effect, and to acknowledge the interconnectivity between all elements of an ecosystem. This is where we're going to expand a little bit on circularity.
Yeah. So in terms of circularity, creating a feedback loop at different scales. So we look again back to landscape design and how a building sits in its landscape and how it interacts with its environment. And I think the way we look at it is that you've got a building and that's serving a utility, it's got a purpose, but the implications of what you decide to do with your building will echo outwards, and they will have an impact on the immediate and the wider ecosystems. So understanding those implications is really quite important. And the key, I think, the way we like to look at it is, rather than thinking about the building influencing the landscape, let's look at it as the landscape influences the buildings.
And also, we mentioned earlier today about circular economy, but I would like to add to that is to consider the cycle of cradle to cradle. I don't know if this is a concept that you've come across. There's a great book that I'm recommending. It's called Cradle to Cradle, which is looking at how can you take one product and turning it into something else, which leads to the concept of no waste. Waste is a human concept. In nature, every resource is shared and nothing is lost. So bringing that awareness again to your local ecosystem and looking at how everything works and how everything functions, and to avoid, where possible, avoiding waste. So on intergenerational transmission, what this actually is expanding our perspective to a temporal scale. And as Greg was mentioning today about the 7 generations, so this is something that we implement deeply at the core of all of our projects. So we're looking 7 generations from now, which equates to 150 years in the future. And we start working backwards from there by bringing responsibility in every single material that we use, and also acknowledging that we are the ancestors of future generations. That brings collective responsibility. This encourages collective decision-making and participatory processes, and focus on, this is the most important thing, on long-term benefit over short-term gain.
Yes, and we feel that one of the most important aspects of that is making sure that everybody's heard. And I heard that today, listening to people is obviously crucial. So one of the initiatives that can be implemented as redevelopment starts is to talk about proper, robust stakeholder engagement of all aspects of the community. It doesn't, regardless of where you're from, your background or your history. Everybody has a role to play in shaping the new city that comes out of the fire, and that's also including the local authorities, urban designers, architects, emergency services, ecologists. Everybody needs to be part of that process to inform policies that acknowledge unfortunate realities that the fires are going, they're likely to reoccur. This is not going to suddenly stop. So there is an immediate but a long-term gain to doing this properly by listening to everybody. Other initiatives that we can talk about here, community land trusts. So this is where the community pool together and they buy parts of land that can then be used for communal and community benefit. Community gardens, this is another thing. We call them allotments in the UK. This is a plot of land that you can get access to, and you can use it to plant your own vegetables and plants. And there are groups in the UK where we've seen that they have a network of these community gardens. There's the incredible edible, Green the Grid is another one that they're up in the north of England, and they share resources for the benefit of the community.
And as I said, an elder is a wisdom holder, so I would encourage you to support youth activism groups and climate leaders. We have a few members here in our audience, so please connect with them. Please make their voices feel heard. Please integrate them in decision making. Please make them feel heard. Because one thing as millennial, one thing that I have really struggled with is this inherited trauma. This inherited trauma that the world that I've been born in is changing so fast, is no longer there. But Gen Z, they don't know a world different than climate crisis. So please connect with them, give them a chance to feel heard, give them a chance to be part of the community. Don't allow old systems such as, do you have experience in working on this? No, but they have experience of our inaction. So please connect with them. I have one last slide and then sharing final thoughts. On reevaluating wealth, as I mentioned, is communal wealth as opposed to individual wealth. And and the implementation, as we said, it looks at circular economy, which is rooted in regeneration. What actually that translates into is cyclical, low waste, and context-dependent system. It's about resource sharing, and as Greg has mentioned, is community instead of unfettered capitalism. That's it. The solution to our problems cannot lie in repeating in repeating what has already brought us into the situation where we find ourselves today. So, final thoughts. Indigenous knowledge and practices have been refined over millennia. They have been at the forefront of climate change for millennia, and they have shown incredible skill of adaptability and resilience, which is what we need today. Has demonstrated that allowing and expanding on our horizons and our perspective on the interconnectedness between human and our other than human relatives. So that brings me to the question of, are you being a good ancestor? So what does it mean to be a good ancestor? A good ancestor, which translates to challenge the relentless pursuit of economic growth at the cost of the well-being of future generations. And when I say future generations, I'm referring to human and other than human. Challenge election cycle myopia, which refers only to a 5-year term implementation of regeneration practices, and challenge short-sighted responses to climate risks. Now, shifting from what means to be a good ancestor to a legacy mindset. How will future generation remember us? We are the last generation that could actually do something meaningful. Design projects that will span beyond your lifetime. Take a leap of faith and invite youth groups to participate in decision-making without perpetuating the old system, where the young people are not heard and they don't feel like they're being seen. This concept of sit here and don't speak, I have felt it many times, not just as a woman, but also as a young person. And harvest acorn mindset. If you haven't read this book, The Good Ancestor, I invite you to go and buy it now. Acorn mindset is about, just imagine this, it's about planting trees for the benefit of the next generation. You're planting the acorn for the oak to grow, for the future generations to enjoy it. Just as a simple metaphor. Ian, any final thoughts?
Yes, I would just say what we've tried to outline today is not an exhaustive list. These are guidelines. These are things that we're trying to implement in our work. There's no judgment or single way to step forward, and concepts that we've talked about need to be adapted and appropriated for the local context. And that will be because, as we said, no two sites are the same, so no two contexts are the same. And at the beginning of the presentation, we sort of pointed out that the situation from a town planning perspective is really unique. And I want to come back to that point by just pointing out that the next steps that are taken will be an example of how to recover from disaster. And the world is watching, so they will study and they will learn from these actions, and they will have a ripple effect across the globe and to wider well-being. So let's try to make the right decisions. And thank you very much for listening. I hope the IT all worked. So.
Thank you.